Despite claiming he could end the Ukraine war in just 24 hours, the Kremlin has dismissed Donald Trump's latest US peace proposals as unacceptable, underscoring the limited progress he has made in fulfilling his pledge to end the war since taking office in January. Sergei Rybkov, a senior foreign policy advisor to Vladimir Putin, stated that key Russian demands were not being addressed in the US proposals, acknowledging for the first time that negotiations between Moscow and Washington over Ukraine have stalled in recent weeks, contrary to what Donald Trump has claimed is progress. We take the models and solutions proposed by the Americans very seriously, but we cannot accept them in their current form, Rybkov told the Russian magazine International Affairs, according to state media reports. His remarks followed Trump's Sunday statement expressing frustration with Putin, saying he was pissed off and warning of potential tariffs on Russian oil exports. Rybkov noted that discussions had focused primarily on establishing a framework for a ceasefire, but said Russia's fundamental concerns remained unaddressed. As it stands, the proposals fail to include our primary requirement, which is to resolve the underlying causes of this conflict, he said. Putin has long argued that addressing these so-called root causes is essential for any lasting resolution, using the stance to justify his firm position on a potential settlement. As preconditions for a ceasefire, the Russian dictator has set terms that would significantly weaken Ukraine's sovereignty and align it more closely with Moscow's influence. His demands include Kiev's recognition of Russia's annexation of Crimea and 4 partly occupied regions in the southeast, the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from those areas, a pledge to forego NATO membership, and a commitment to demilitarization. In recent weeks, Putin has also ramped up calls for regime change in Ukraine, questioning Zelensky's legitimacy and suggesting that Ukraine should be placed under external governance. Trump, meanwhile, who has become increasingly frustrated with both Russian and Ukrainian leaders, as they are exposing him as not the great deal-maker as he claimed after his efforts to negotiate a truce have stalled. His remark about being pissed off at Putin over ceasefire talks marks a shift in tone for Trump, who's previously spoken favorably of the Russian president. However, by Monday, Trump had softened his rhetoric, instead accusing Ukraine of attempting to renegotiate an economic agreement with the US. By this morning, the White House stated that Trump's frustrations extended to leaders on both sides of the conflict. Despite multiple US-led diplomatic meetings and discussions in Saudi Arabia that resulted in a nominal 30-day energy ceasefire, whatever that means, both Russia and Ukraine have continued to target each other's energy infrastructure. Additionally, the Trump regime attempted to negotiate a ceasefire in the Black Sea, but Russia insisted on conditions, including the easing of European sanctions, an immediate deal-breaker for Brussels. It seems little progress has been made, and these negotiations could possibly extend into next year. Despite the setbacks, Trump's team insists it remains committed to brokering peace, with Trump saying that he and Putin plan to speak again this week. I wonder how long Putin will keep him waiting this time. Finnish President Alexander Stubb, who met with Trump over the weekend, suggested setting April 20 as a deadline for Putin to agree to a complete ceasefire. However, Kremlin insiders doubt that Moscow will accept a full ceasefire without securing concessions, including an end to Western military aid and intelligence support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Putin has called up 160,000 men, aged 18 to 30, Russia's highest number of conscripts since 2011, as the country moves to expand the size of its military. The spring call-up for a year's military service came several months after Putin said Russia should increase the overall size of its military to almost 2.39 million, and its number of active servicemen to 1.5 million. That's a rise of 180,000 over the coming 3 years. Putin's vice admiral said the new conscripts would not be sent to fight in Ukraine for what Russia calls its special military operation. However, there have been reports of conscripts being killed in fighting in Russia's border regions. The current draft, which takes place between April and July, comes despite US attempts to forge the ceasefire. There was no let-up in the violence today, with Ukraine saying that a Russian attack on a power facility in the southern city of Kherson had left 45,000 people without electricity. Although Russia has turned down a full US-brokered ceasefire, it says it did agree to stop attacking Ukraine's energy facilities. In an apparent attempt to deny Moscow had broken the terms of that deal, Russian officials said they told Putin that Ukrainian drones had carried out attacks, with little signs of a break. On his flight back to Washington on Sunday, when asked when he wanted Russia to agree to a ceasefire, Trump said there was a psychological deadline. "I think they're tapping us along. I will not be happy about it," he said. Trump soon pivoted, though, to criticize Zelensky. He's trying to back out of the rare earth deal, or raw earth, as Trump mistakenly often calls it. He was referring to negotiations over US access to critical minerals in Ukraine. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems, Trump said. Clearly not as big a problem as Trump has on his hands. Trump and Zelensky were supposed to sign the deal when the Ukrainian leader visited the White House. However, their meeting ended with acrimony that played out in front of television cameras in the Oval Office. Trump suggested on Sunday that Zelensky wanted to renegotiate the deal to get better security guarantees. He wants to be a member of NATO, he said. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. Trump repeating Russian talking points. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.